Yo, we're here. Game night, y'all. So we got to talk about it. Mikal Bridges just signed a monster extension, continuing to lock up that New York Knicks core for the future. Is this going to be the season that the New York Knicks are able to overcome all the hurdles and make it back to the NBA Finals? And today is Scotty Barnes' 24th birthday. Happy birthday, brother. We're going to talk about what the next step are for Scotty Barnes. Do we believe that this is the year he can take a true all NBA lead, maybe even fringe MVP candidate? And we're going to talk about the first year head coaches. Which ones are the most set up for success? Who will have the best season among all first year coaches? That's Pat. This is Swipa. This is Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Yes, sir. Welcome to NBA Game Night. We are your hosts, Swipa and Pat. Y'all cannot wait to get into this great content with you all. I'm so excited for this episode. There's one thing I love talking about, and I love talking about Scottie Barnes. I think he's a really good player. Mikal Bridges, great player. I'm excited to get into the conversations around the New York Knicks, around the Toronto Raptors, and around a lot of first-year head coaches. And really, we're really talking heavy about the Eastern Conference today, and I cannot wait to get into this episode to you. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Pat, my brother, number one, I hope you're doing well, man. We ain't been 100%. On the same microphone in a minute. How's everything going with you, brother?
Hey, we all good over here, man. Ripping and running. It's training camp, so I haven't slept basically in weeks, but it's all good. You know what I mean? The Bears look like a better team. We got the Bulls. They're the Bulls. You know what I mean? We got they play in this city, and we got the NBA as a whole. I feel like is in a very fun place, and it's entering a good spot. So I'm glad to be on Game Night with you, my boy.
All right, man. Give me one quick prediction for the Chicago Bears this year.
Right now, I'm at 9-8. If we go out and we add Michael Parsons. I don't know if you saw that today. I'm living at 12 wins now, but I think that there's a lot of stuff that's going to be established as far as culture in that building, and so I'm very excited about what Ben Johnson is building up for us.
Yeah, man. Shout out, man. You know, shout out to the Bears. Hopefully they can get Michael Parsons when he can actually just go to Denver and play in the best defense in the NFL. All right. So let's talk Mikal Bridges. If you're not aware, everybody, NBA fans out there, Mikal Bridges just signed a monster extension, 4 years, $150 million extension. Now, Mikal Bridges is one of the very best high-level, I would say, star in their role players in the NBA. He is a very, very good shooter, very good defender. He's a good dribbler, creator. He does a lot of really important things for the New York Knicks. You know, obviously they traded a haul to add him to that roster. And then on top of that, 17.6 points per game last year, 3 rebounds, 3.7 assists in the regular season. And then he went to the NBA playoffs, averaged 15.6 points per game in 18 games played last year in the playoffs, 2.9 assists, 4.5 rebounds. And he offers you a whole lot as a player. So, Pat, number one, when you heard of this extension and you saw the numbers behind it, what were some of your initial thoughts on it?
I mean, the first thought is that the new NBA setup for these contracts is getting mugs paid, because Mikal Bridges making 150 does sound crazy, but it truly isn't when you talk about, you know, what he brings to a team and how much of the cap you want him to absorb and still being able to go out there and make moves. But I mean, listen, as far as Mikal as a player, I think the contract is well earned. When you talk about a guy who comes with a true shooting percentage of 58% from the field, he's got one of the better offensive ratings in the NBA at 116. I mean, he is one of the best defenders on ball. And it doesn't always, I think people a lot of times get confused with, did he shut him down? Nobody's shutting anybody down in the NBA anymore. We don't live in that world. There's too many great talents out here. Does he make people's shots hard? We see Mikal Bridges do that a ton. He's got a 10.5% turnover rate. There's so much that he does. I think that they actually underutilized him in the playoffs last year. And I think the reason you lock him up is because with the new coaching staff coming in after moving on from Tom Thibodeau, I think there's going to be a lot more use for Mikal Bridges this season.
Yeah, and again, for Knicks fans, they know this, but if you're not a Knicks fan, you know, right now, Mikal Bridges is about 28 years old. He's 6'6", to about 210 pounds. And one of the things that you really value in this league are players that can create off the dribble for themselves and for others. And if you watch the Knicks play basketball, them having Jalen Brunson, them having Mikal Bridges, them having Karl-Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, Deuce McBride, and then adding Jordan Clarkson, a part of the way they want to play is being able to have multiple players that can create advantages for themselves outside of just Jalen Brunson, because Jalen Brunson was a miracle worker last year in the regular season, in the clutch, and even in the playoffs. He was great in that New York Knicks series, had a lot of really big moments in the series versus the Pacers, but they just needed a little bit more. And I think them adding Jordan Clarkson, them adding Gershon Yabusele, I think it's going to be really important for their hopes next year as they're adding to their bench. But Mikal Bridges is an absolutely instrumental part of what that team is. Like I said, you look at his basketball index player card, he is ranked as an A+ isolation defender on the perimeter. He's an A- perimeter shooter. So you're adding somebody who's that big, that long, that can do all of those things. I truly think this is a great deal for the New York Knicks. And on top of that, if you look at their current cap sheet, so next year, they're going to be paying $53 million to Karl-Anthony Towns. They're going to be paying $39 million to OG Anunoby. They're going to be paying $34 million to Jalen Brunson. Obviously, everybody remembers, took a massively underpaid deal to be able to make room for everybody else on the roster. And then by the time he turns his player option down in 28, 29, he's going to be eligible for almost $400 million. I mean, that's how big that deal is going to be for him. And then Mikal Bridges, this is the last year of his deal, making 24.9. And I think also, too, I want to do this, Pat. I want to remind people. So that's about $37 million a year for a 4-year, $150 million extension. Some of the players that are in that range, Tyrese Maxey, making 37.9 this next year. LaMelo Ball making 37.9 this next year. Bam Adebayo making 37 before his jumps to 48, 52, and 56. De'Aaron Fox making 37 on the last year of his deal. Desmond Bane at about 36. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of where exactly this contract is slotting. And I'm actually perfectly fine with that. Look, Michael Porter Jr. making $38 million and $40 million on the last year of his deal. I think Mikal Bridges is a better player. So not only are you getting a very team-friendly contract, you're getting a contract that based on cap percentage isn't going to be outlandish, and a perfect player that I think really ages well with the rest of this Knicks roster. So my question for you is, Pat, when you evaluate the Eastern Conference, no Jason Tatum in the Boston Celtics next year, the Indiana Pacers, no Tyrese Halliburton, and then the Milwaukee Bucks, even though they added Miles Turner, Dame Lillard is off the team. They're going to be starting Gary Trent Jr., KPJ, Kyle Kuzma, Giannis, and Miles Turner. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers, obviously. Is the Eastern Conference, is it theirs to take for the New York Knicks next year to come out of the East and represent the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals?
Listen, I think you have to think so, right? The changes that the Knicks made this offseason are just adding a little fancy word, a little je ne sais quoi to what you already had. You were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. You were right there at the doorstep, and it was just, a very Thibs kind of, I know Thibs very well here in Chicago, a very Thibs kind of fizzle out down the stretch where, hey, we're more focused on the defensive end. We got to get these stops. But you didn't have a ton of the offensive ability. I think that does change with the new coaching staff coming in here. And I think Mikal Bridges is truly a big part of that. When you think about what Mike Brown wants to do, he wants that guy who can be kind of the everyman guy. You know what Mikal Bridges can give you? At a certain point, if you need him to, he can give you 26 points in a game. He can go out there and be the main scorer for you if Jalen Brunson is getting locked down. It felt like, and very much like it always does, a Thibs coach team is going to rely heavily on the point guard. And you should with Jalen Brunson. But when Jalen Brunson started getting to the point where he was just chucking up shots and you were going, yeah, he's putting up big numbers, but they're not being impactful for wins. You need him to get everyone else involved here. I think you may the change that the Knicks made may seem very similar in going out and getting the coach, but if you have subtle offensive changes, I do think that you put yourself in a better position, especially with a guy like Mikal Bridges, to say, okay, Brunson, we just need you to kind of be the decoy or draw the defense's attention. Mikal, I need you to go out there and get us 25 tonight. I need you to be the guy that goes out there and locks down the best player. That's why, like, pairing this up, when you talk about what the Knicks can do, you have to look at this team with how they've now locked in Mikal Bridges as, hey, you're making your decision. This is your core moving forward. You're going out there to try and win a championship right now. You're not trying to take a step back and figure it out and then roll back in. And you mentioned all the injuries that are there, dog. Like, that to me is the reason why Cleveland, you keep them up top. Maybe they are the best team in the Eastern Conference this year, but you better have a conversation about the Knicks. And if you don't, it's a failure of a season.
Look, I think the Knicks are in a very good position. Knicks fans, I will say, I think Jalen Brunson, one of the 10 best players in the world. I think that Karl-Anthony Towns was one of the 15 best players in the world last year. Both of them made my second team All-NBA teams. You got OG Anunoby, you got Mikal Bridges, you got Josh Hart, you got Mitchell Robinson, and then you add having Jordan Clarkson and Gershon Yabusele on the roster. This, for me, Knicks fans, you should feel even better now than you did this last season going in to the year. I cannot wait to see the New York Knicks perform this year. And on the other side, we're going to talk about Scottie Barnes. So if you're a Toronto Raptors fan, if you're an NBA fan, and you want to talk about one of the best wings in the NBA, this is the place. We're about to get on that conversation here on the other side of NBA Game Night. We'll be right back for more here in just a minute. So look, y'all, we've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as you get closer to showtime, so you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Now, are you tired of endless scrolling as you're trying to find the best deal? Well, Game Time Zone Deals pick the best seats for you that you want in the section you want. With panoramic seat view, you can see exactly what your seat and view will look like from anywhere inside of the theater, the stadium, wherever you might be. And with Game Time, the price you see, that's the price you pay. No hidden fees, y'all. If you love theater, you love comedy shows like me, you want to get ready for this upcoming NBA season, Game Time is the place to be. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LLC KEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Y'all, we'll be right back for more here on Game Time. Y'all, we are back here for segment 2 of Game Night, y'all. I cannot wait to get into this conversation, Pat, man. I don't know how you feel about Scottie Barnes, but when he first came out in the draft, now a lot of y'all might think this is a little bit of an overrate, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Like, that's just, you got to call your shot with certain players. I said, I think this might be one of the eventual 5 best players in the world. And the reason I said that, if you watched him at Florida State, this dude he was everything like you would think a modern player should be. He's a very good passer as a 6'8" wing, 6'7" wing. He's very strong, extremely athletic, extremely intelligent. And even though offensively, he doesn't have some of the natural on-ball skill sets as like a shooter, pull-up shooter that you would love. I mean, he's a pretty good post scorer. He's kind of good in an in-between area, in between the three-point line and the rim. He's somebody that you can trust to make really high-level decisions, I think, for a good team. Now, he's continuing to develop. There will be opportunities for him to move forward. If you look at his career, Pat, he's already made an all-star game last year. This year, he averaged 19.3 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 5.8 assists, and he played 65 games. So, Pat, when you look at Scottie Barnes and you look at some of the things that he does well, defensively, offensively, transition, ball handling, what is the next step? He just turned 24. What is the next step for Scottie Barnes to move himself into that all-NBA conversation?
There's 2 things that I think you have to look at. His jump shot as a whole, he doesn't have one. Like it's inconsistent at best is kind of the best way to describe it. I think the teams basically say your best option is for us to sag off of you and let you take that shot. And it's kind of becoming, it's not a Ben Simmons level type of thing, but it is becoming where he's getting reluctant to take that shot because he knows he's not there yet. And so what he does is now in these pressure moments when usually you see these things, he tries to drive the ball down low, and those turnovers under pressure, while his turnover percentage is usually pretty low, when he gets under pressure and gets into those traps, that's when that turnover percentage starts to creep up a little bit for Scottie Barnes. And that, to me, if he can improve on those 2 things, where I think the jump shot answers the turnovers under pressure conversation, Like now, all of a sudden, he's a fully complete player. But where he's at right now, and he's still very young, I do have some worries that he may be just like one of his teammates, who, by the way, this is a worry of him being still a really good player, but he kind of is giving me Brandon Ingram vibes after last season. We wanted to see that next step. We wanted to see him, okay, what did you add to your game? You're the same dude, which isn't a bad player, but you thought there was going to be this next leap in production for Scotty Barnes that I just didn't think that didn't end up coming. And that reminds me of a player like Brandon Ingram, Brandon Ingram's a very good player. I think he's an elite mid-range scorer. I think that he is somebody who you can rely on to go out there and be very, very efficient. But Brandon Ingram's always been about a 22-point per game player. And we've waited for, remember when he was coming out of college, there were Kevin Durant comparisons to him. We've waited for him to at least be, hey, give me a consistent 25 to 27 points a game. Be that star that we think you are. And he's had that opportunity in New Orleans. Now seeing him, kind of switch teams up here, it's going to be interesting to see, what his game is at it. But Scotty Barnes does give me those vibes right now. And hopefully next season, like I said, if he has the jump shot, sky's the limit for this kid.
Yeah, look, I'm really excited for him. I think that with a new roster this year with the Toronto Raptors, I think that's going to really benefit him a lot in particular, because if you kind of look at the way that the Raptors have been structured as an organization with the team, they have tried to fit a lot of very interesting pieces together with how the team plays. And
they all play the same.
Yeah, I mean, they were having a lot of issues with redundancy, and I think Raptors fans would even tell you that. And I think, too, I think Masai Ujiri is an excellent GM, president of basketball ops. He's a great global ambassador for this roster. But Raptors fans felt like he was waiting a little bit too long on some things in terms of developing the roster, making trades, adding some things. But now I do think that because of the situation they're in where they're adding these players to the roster, and then I think having a lot of wings, one of the things that I'm actually really excited about is Scotty Barnes having an opportunity to play with Brandon Ingram and to be able to play with players like RJ Barrett again. Yeah. I think they're going to be one of the bigger, longer wing teams in the league. They'll be starting more than likely Emmanuel quickly. You'll have RJ Barrett. You'll have Brandon Ingram. You'll have Scottie Barnes. They're going to have Jakob Poeltl. Jamal Shedd's going to be there. Ochai Agbaji will be back for another year. Jonathan Mogbo will be back for another year. Jacoby Walters will be back for another year. There's like an actual unit. And I think the best example, Pat, of what this team could look like going forward is they had a game last year where they played versus the Boston Celtics when they were fully healthy. And this was a game where I want to say they won by 17. Yeah. And the amount of pressure they put on the Celtics in that game was spectacular. They actually won 110-97. But if you go back and you watch the way that the game was played, Scotty Barnes had 18 points and 9 assists. RJ Barrett had 22 points, 8 assists, and 10 rebounds in that game. But if you watch the defense they played on Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, they were swarming. They were playing aggressive. They were utilizing their side. Scotty Barnes was working out of the post. He was taking advantage of mismatches. Yeah. Like you found RJ Barrett doing that stuff as well. So I do think, Pat, having 3 wings that are all high-level scorers relative to the position of Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, and Brandon Ingram, and then that you add in players that they are adding through the draft, Emmanuel quickly there too, there's a path. I don't think they're going to be a top 6 seed. But playing, legitimate playing, secure 7th, 8th seed next year, I think that's all on the table for the Raptors.
I think that was the belief of the step they were supposed to take this year. And it was because you thought Scotty was going to be this much more, right? Add so much more to the offensive side of the ball. And you had all these pieces. You had RJ, you had quickly all these pieces that you brought in by a trade that you thought were going to put you over the top. And it never truly materialized. And they dealt with some injuries and things like that as well last season. But I think the biggest thing too is, right, and maybe Brandon Ingram helps with this. You bring up all of the efficiency and all the scores that they've added to this team. Scotty sometimes just got to be more aggressive. I don't know if this is an FSU thing. I understand that I got Pat Will over here. I know about a lack of aggressiveness from the FSU players, but there are times where you forget Scotty's on the floor, and then you go, wait a minute, hey, where's the best player at? Oh, he's been out there for 6 minutes. He just hasn't really taken a shot. He hasn't really gotten himself involved in the game. Like, that aggressiveness is going to be incredibly important. And now, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about organizational change and a lot of the things that are happening there. I think there's going to be more of a push for the development of these players, not just naturally, but hey, we need more out of you for you to get to this next level. I think it's going to be from the front office. I think it's going to be from the coaching staff. And it's not just going to be, well, eventually they'll develop into these pieces. We saw them do that with some of the pieces that were there before. And it did work, right? It worked for Kyle Lowry. It worked for DeMar DeRozan. They had that natural drive. And I'm not saying Scotty Barnes doesn't have a drive to be great, but sometimes you need that push of like, hey, you don't get the opportunity to take the back seat today. Just because we got BI, just because we got quickly, don't mean you stop shooting.
And I think that's why it's all going to work together for me. I think that third-team All-NBA should be one of the goals for Scotty. If you look at some of his play-type data, then I'll end this conversation here. He plays, in terms of what he does most frequently as a basketball player, he plays as a ball handler 20% of the time this last year. He plays out of the post-up 11% of the time. And then he plays as an isolation player about 10.5% of the time. Now, the thing is he's best at is the roll man. He averages 1.14 points per possession as a roll man last year. That's really good. That's like really good efficiency. And that's because he has great athleticism. He's very smart and has good touch. Yeah. As a ball handler, 0.84. I want to see that number go up. If that number can get up to about 0.96 points per possession, almost 1 point per possession, that will really be effective to initiating the offense for the Toronto Raptors next year, and then isolation as well. I think his isolation numbers, given the fact that he can create so many advantages at the downhill score, getting to the free throw line, the more he can utilize his body as a roll man at going to the basket to get to the free throw line as a finisher, I think that's how you continue to take small steps on a game-by-game basis to improve. So I'm excited for Scotty Barnes. I'm excited for the Toronto Raptors, and I'm actually excited for the next conversation of which NBA coach that's a first-time coach is going to have the best season next year. We'll talk about all that more here on the other side. Y'all, we're back here for segment 3 of NBA Game Night. Thank y'all so much for being here. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe, y'all. We are continuing to grow this Locked On NBA channel here on the YouTube side. Make sure if you're listening to this on the audio side, give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. That way more and more people can listen to the great all NBA content being made here at Game Time. All right, Pat, so we're getting into the first-year NBA coaches. Now, for the audience, let me go ahead and break this down for you a little bit. So I'm going to add that, yes, we're doing first-year coaches, meaning you were just hired this year, but we're also going to have in this conversation coaches that were added late last season that were given first-year jobs, but because of the situation, they had to take over jobs a little bit later in the year. So Doug Christie, even though Doug Christie coached a lot of games this last year, I don't know if necessarily I'll count him, but David Adelman only coached 3 games last year in the regular season, y'all. That's a first-time head coach. Twamas Isolo, he only coached 9 games last year for the Memphis Grizzlies. He's in this conversation. So I want to have a conversation with you, brother, about who do you think among all these coaches is going to be the most successful next year, and what do you feel like is going to really help them from a roster personnel standpoint to do that?
Listen, oddly enough, and it sounds crazy, I think David Adelman's the easiest one, right? Yeah. Because like Jokic.
Right.
Like what are we gonna do? Jokic. That's right. What you're gonna. That's the easiest conversation to have. And I think that when you have great players, that's what it comes down to. But from a pure coaching standpoint, X's and O's, I'm very interested to see what a guy like Jordan Ott is going to be able to do. And the reason that I look at him is because the changes that Phoenix made this offseason, I think actually turned them into a basketball team and not, hey, let's go out there and just try to outscore everybody every single night. I think you're putting Devin Booker back in a much more comfortable position that he's used to being in of like, hey, yes, I got the ball in my hand, but also I'm a focal point scorer on this team, and I don't have to kind of adjust my game to everybody who's out there. I think bringing over some of the defense that they did, which was a major issue this last season. It was just like, okay, we got Kevin Durant. Let's go out there and outscore everybody. Like That doesn't work anymore. And I think there's going to have to be more of an intensity, even some of the things that they added through the draft in Kamal Maluak and going out and getting a guy like Mark Williams, adding that center role to the team. I think Jordan Knott has a lot of fun tools to play with here. It's going to be very interesting to see how he utilizes all of it.
And I want to speak on this Jordan Knott thing a little bit. Look, what him last year and the things that he was able to add to a Cleveland Cavaliers team, I think Kenny Atkinson, Jordan Knott, they deserve so much credit for rebuilding that Cleveland Cavaliers offense, because I think they helped rebuild a culture as well. Like that, they won 60+ games last year. I don't care what people think about the team. I don't care what people think about their playoff chances or their final chances. You don't do that by accident. They were dominant. They were even more dominant in the regular season last year than the Boston Celtics were the year they won the title. Like, that's how good with it they were. You got, I think, the career year from Darius Garland, a career year from Evan Mobley. You got a career year out of Jared Allen. You got a really good season out of Donovan Mitchell. And then on top of that, you get Ty Jerome having a career season. You add DeAndre Hunter to the roster. He looks excellent with that team. Yeah. They made a lot of things work. Sam Merrill looked good last year with them. They re-figured out how to get Isaac Okoro going. Like, Jordan Knott, I think, had developed a personnel and an offensive mentality of sharing the basketball and getting everyone as involved as possible. So I think with the Phoenix Suns this year, with Devin Booker and especially with Jalen Green, I still have hopes that Jalen Green can end up turning into the star that everybody wants him to be. I think he has the talent to do it. Now it's just about figuring out the mental. You add Kamal Malawach, you add Mark Williams, you add Dylan Brooks, you add Royce O'Neal. I wouldn't be surprised if that team is a little better than people think. Now, the easy one for me would have been David Adelman, but I feel like that's cheating a little bit.
Yeah,
they just got Cam Johnson. I think they have the best starting five, arguably, in basketball now with Cam Johnson inserted. They had a bench with Jonas Valanciunas and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Bruce Brown, Julian Strawther, Deron Holmes. I think they're going to push 55, 56, 57, 58 wins next year. I think Mike Brown is a name that is worth mentioning there, because I think Mike Brown, former coach of the year twice, I might add, he's going to be a great addition to the New York Knicks. I think he's going to have a lot to do to really continue to change and fix that culture. Man, though, like, I think the NBA and having a Mike Brown system in New York where you're maximizing possessions and you're maximizing touches, and you already have, arguably, I think Knicks fans can make an argument that Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns, that's the best offensive duo in the NBA. You might not take them like that, but I think you could make an argument they're the best offensive duo in the NBA. I think that they're going to have a lot of really good basketball being played because of him next year. And so I'm actually really excited to continue to see how the Knicks develop. And now they got, like I said, they got Gershon coming off the bench. They got Jordan Clarkson coming off the bench. They're going to have a lot of offensive firepower. I'm excited to see how they utilize Mitchell Robinson with a healthy season next year, and Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges and Deuce McBride. That's a real rotation. They got a 9-10-man rotation that I think Mike Brown's going to be able to utilize. And I think that you're going to see them take some steps in some places where they needed to, that come playoff time, that'll make them even more viable. And there's a world we get an even better season from Jalen Brunson, too, because of Mike Brown being able to deploy him very similarly than he did to De'Aaron Fox with the Kings. So I'm excited for them.
Yeah, listen, I mean, Mike Brown, I don't even know if I can count him in the conversation. I know we're doing freshly hired coaches, but like, Mike Brown know what he's doing. Like, I fully expect this team to be right back in a playoff contention conversation. Like, there should be no step back. Oh, there's a new system. They will figure it out. Like, Mike Brown is a veteran in this. I do want to go back to something you said, though, about Jordan Knott and the Cleveland situation that he was in. I think a lot of people forget there was a lot of chatter around Donovan Mitchell about, I don't want to be here. There was a lot of that, like, noise of like, I'm good. This is not where I want to be. This is not where I see us winning. He ends up signing a contract, coming back. I think what you said about the culture that changed around that team is something that Phoenix needs so badly. That was I'm not going to say it was a bad culture, but it was just a culture of like, it's all on the shoulders of KD and Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, and we're not actually trying to play team basketball. We're just trying to go out there and run a 2K roster and see how much it's going to work. I think the change of culture may be one of the more important things that can happen in Phoenix, because, and I think even to that point, getting the stench of not firing a coach after a season is over. What are they on? Coach number 5 at this point?
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Yeah, it's bad.
When you have that attached to your franchise,
yeah,
you need a culture changer, and that's what I think Ott can be.
Yeah. Look, so I also want to give Twama Isolo. He's with the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, of all these coaches, this is probably the 3rd best team of the teams that we mentioned. But man, look, the Memphis Grizzlies, Ja Morant next year, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They're gonna have Jalen Wells, who I think was probably 2nd in my Rookie of the Year voting last year. Jaren Jackson Jr., who was in Depoy conversation, and had he finished a year stronger, would have been 3rd team All NBA. Zach Edey's back for his 2nd season. They added Ty Jerome to the roster. They have Scottie Pippen Jr. They got Vince Williams. They got Sante Aldama. Brandon Clark will be back and even healthier next year, including G.G. Jackson, including John Conchar. They have a deep team. Yeah. And I think with a new offense built around Ja Morant and more pick and roll for Ja Morant, utilizing a lot of his playmaking skill set in the middle of the floor, look, man, I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden it's like we thought the West was going to be these 6 teams, let's say like OKC, Houston, Denver, Clippers, Wolves, Lakers. But then in the regular season, all of a sudden Memphis is here to crash the party at the 4th, 5th, or 6th seed. I hope that Thomas is able to find success like that with this team. And I think Grizzlies fans, you deserve to have a team that is competing in the Western Conference like that. Because this is a really talented team. It has a lot of veterans, a lot of savvy players on the roster. So I would not be surprised if Thomas Isolo, it might have the best situation behind maybe Mike Brown and David Allen next year.
What's going to be tough for Isolo is the health of this team has always been the biggest question. There is no overcoming losing Ja Morant. Now, if he is one of those coaches, if he's a Spo, if he's a Ty Lue, where the waves get high and he's like, don't worry about it, I'm going to direct the ship. I think that, that's a different conversation to have. That puts him into one of those upper echelon of coaches in the NBA. There's not many of those. Usually when your star players go down, you struggle a little bit. And that's kind of been the story around Ja Morant. That's been the story a little bit around Jaren Jackson Jr. These guys are both guys that have missed time there. And then you start to look at some of the other guys. I do agree with you on the depth of this team, but there's a lot of development that you're going to have with a guy like Rob Dillingham, with a guy like Terrence Shannon Jr., who I think, they can be very good players in this NBA, but you got to develop them. You got to hone that skill in and say, this is where we need you to focus in from a team standpoint. A lot of individual players that you're bringing over from college that were individually successful that you need to get them all to play as a team. And then you mentioned Zach Edey. He's got the Jaren Jackson Jr. syndrome. You can't have 5 fouls in the 3rd quarter, bro. You got to figure out how to not get into foul trouble. I know that's going to be difficult, especially with the fast pace of the game, but that's going to be the biggest thing for Thomas Isolo to have success, is keeping his guys on the floor, 1, healthy, and 2, just teaching them how to play the game the right way.
Yeah, I'm excited. Look, this is going to be a great NBA year, y'all. Pat, thank you so much for joining me. We actually got to do more shows together, man. We have good chemistry,
100%, baby.
As always, y'all. Make sure, if you like what you're hearing on NBA Game Night, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a 5-star review on the audio side. That's Pat. This is Swipa. Y'all know what time it is. See you on the other side.